Individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet everyone, and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron's Master Class. I see the professor is walking up to the podium. So, take a seat, get comfortable. The class is ready to begin.
And merry meet everybody, and welcome to this week's Stirring the Cauldron's Master Class. And the teacher tonight is Robert Rubin. Now, he started out as a practitioner of the esoteric in the San Francisco Bay Area, where he was first introduced to the practice of magic and psychic sciences at the age of 12. He later moved over to the Philippines, where he founded his own circle of practitioners and aficionados, and where he instructed and learned. With hundreds of students trained, he's now the leading tarot authority in the Philippines, and tonight's class is all about tarot magic. And questions and comments are welcome for those who are listening live in the chat room. But if you need to be over here, it's ParaXRadioNetwork.com and join the crowd. All right, Robert, step up to the podium, and how are you?
Good morning from here in the Philippines, Professor Marla. It's an honor to be here as well, and I'm doing good.
Good, and you're really early in the morning, too, so thank you.
Honor's all mine.
I have that, and then I have people in the UK. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, so I'm humbled that people will do this for me. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about tarot magic, and I guess I've got a question to get the class started, and then I'll magically disappear.
Okay.
So it might sound like tarot magic has to do with pulling a rabbit out of a hat with a tarot deck in its paws, or, have a tarot cards up your sleeve. So what is tarot magic?
All right. Well, if we're going to combine both the understanding of the practice of the tarot and, of course, the standard understanding of the definition of magic according to Aleister Crowley, which is the art and or science of causing change in one's environment in conformity with the will, this is a practice where you use the tarot deck not just for divination, but as a means of magic and manifestation. You see, the beautiful thing about the tarot deck is when I was younger, although this is no longer my narrative, people ask me, Rob, what is your tarot? I would tell them, my tarot is a spell book. And for all of you tarot readers out there, it'll kind of tickle your imagination, because if you look at it, each card, especially if you're using something like the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, represents in itself a potential energy, an archetypal energy that can be used to manifest or to do magic. Let me give you an example. If you wanted to get good at something, okay, if you wanted to get, let's say, good at programming a VCR, because people don't do that anymore, one of the best things you can tap into would be the powers of the magician. Why? Because the magician has an archetypal energy of it, of skill, of worthiness, of application of talent. And with the proper, let's say, subjectification, because I personally believe magic is subjective, you can tweak a tarot deck to not just be used for fortune telling or for divination, but to use it to direct and sometimes even invoke energies into yourself. That's why in my latest book, the Tarot 78 Spells for 78 Days, I created a 78-day program where each day you're given a spell using one card from the tarot deck. And it'll just tickle your imagination, but at the end of the day, I always tell my students, tweak it, use it how you see fit. It's not written law. These are just suggestions. These are just like, okay, you can use this card for this result. Did you know that? This is how I do it. And if you like it, incorporate it. And if you don't like it, then you could completely ignore it. So it shows it's almost limitless in its potential. So I hope that gives a good answer to what you asked me.
Yeah, it does. It is. So I'm going to sit back and learn some stuff from you now. So
Okay.
when you start your class, we're here.
All right. Well, I got to be honest with you, Marla. I'm usually used to the interview segment that you and I do. So would you kind of explain to me how the masterclass works? Like, do I just teach or do you ask me questions? Because I haven't had a masterclass with you yet after all these years.
Well, I didn't have one until, recently. So, yeah. No, we can turn it over to you if you have like a criterion in your head. There will be probably questions that come up in my mind and also from the chat room. So I would just say, get started and I'll interrupt you one way or the other.
All right, sounds great. So anyhow, I like to tell my students time and time again that if you're going to start the practice of the tarot, there is no better way to go than to get yourself a copy of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Why is it that I recommend these decks? Although there are hundreds, if not thousands, of decks out there that are beautiful, if you really want to tap into the collective archetypal imagery of the tarot, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is good because it is a prime example of what I call a descriptive deck. Now, in Mysterium Philippines, we illustrate to our students that there are three kinds of decks that exist. There's what we call a descriptive deck, there is what we call an intuitive deck, and there is what we call a hybrid deck. So to just justify why we're using the Rider-Waite, I'll just educate the listeners and the students as to what each means. A descriptive deck is a deck that the meaning of the card, regardless of who created it, is clearly described in the artwork. Okay? So for example, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is the perfect example of descriptive deck because if you look at some of the cards there, let's say like the Nine of Swords, which represents anguish or anxiety and suffering, you could really see that in the card. So, okay, this person looks like they're having an anxiety attack. They look like they're sleepless. That's apparent in the artwork. That's what's the power of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck because most of the cards, if not all of them, are descriptive. If you look at it, it will do what Paul Foster Case said is provoke thought. Because a lot of people think that the tarot is just meant, that's just meant for fortune telling and the tarot reading, but no. Rosicrucian author Paul Foster Case said that the primary focus of the tarot is to provoke thought. So when you see a card like, say, the Nine of Swords or the Ten of Swords, and you say, that person looks like they're having not too good of a day, it is already provoking thought. And it's already triggering certain thoughts, certain responses, both consciously and unconsciously, that you can use for your magic. So when you're looking at a card, let's say like the Two of Cups, where two people, a man and a woman, are presenting a cup to one another, and there's the Caduceus of Hermes in the center, it seems like let's say, I don't want to use the word twin flame, that's a bad word in my language, but it looks like a kindred soul relationship. When you look at that card, you might ask yourself, hey, well, have I ever experienced a kindred soul? Well, yeah, I think so. Marla seems like a kindred soul to me. It doesn't need to be romantic. It could be something like she's such a great friend to me. She's always been there when I needed her. And just by thinking that, by looking at the card, you're already triggering thought processes that can fuel your magic. Okay? So that's the good example of a descriptive deck. Now, an intuitive deck. These are for a little bit more advanced people. Like if you guys who are paying attention in class right now, look up the Marseille deck. It's a beautiful classic deck, okay? However, it is, I call it an intuitive deck because if you don't have an already previous understanding of the tarot cards, you might find yourself lost. Going back to the example that I used of the 9 and 10 of Swords, in the Marseille deck, you won't see a man in anguish or a man with swords in his back. You will just see 10 swords. So if you don't know what that means, you're basically just looking at a bunch of symbols which will have more of an intuitive response, but not a conscious response. Be like, what the hell does this mean? So I recommend decks like that for more advanced, more seasoned practitioners because they already have the immediate recall based on their understanding of previous decks. Now, the third deck that we use is what we call a hybrid deck. And some decks have very detailed major arcana cards and very intuitive minor arcana cards. In other words, if you look at one of their major cards, it's like a masterpiece of the artist. It's like, this card is beautiful. But when it got to the minor arcana cards, they just threw 7 swords or 5 wands. No description in it. If this is a good jumping point between a person who wants to jump from the use of a descriptive deck to that of an intuitive one. Now, that being justified, let's go back to understanding the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. You have 22 major arcana cards and 56 minor arcana cards within this deck, okay? I like to tell my students that if you want to do major plot points in your life, okay, you will use the energies of the major arcana cards. Why? Because I tell my students in my tarot class and in my tarot magic class, there's a reason these 22 cards are separate from the rest. And I like to illustrate it like Harry Potter. These are plot points that you took from the book that you must put in the movie for it to make sense. If you removed it, you don't have your movie anymore. So, for example, Lord Voldemort could be considered the devil. If you took that out of the Harry Potter movie, you don't have a Harry Potter story anymore. It just wouldn't make sense. While the minor arcana cards represent the more malleable but still relevant aspects of a person's life. These are the things that aren't as essential to your story, but they add flavor to it. Like the name of the ghost that was teasing Harry in Hogwarts. They never said in the movie his name was Peeves. Okay? But it was very apparent in the book. Now, these things aren't essential, but they do add a certain level of flavor. Like, in other words, for you to have your higher purpose, you don't necessarily need to have a love life, or you don't necessarily need to have children, for example, but it's a nice to have for some people. So for these things, I tell people to start off with understanding, what are you trying to manifest? Are you trying to manifest something big in your life, like higher purpose? Then you will be using the major arcana cards. However, the major things take a major amount of time. You've got to be very patient because major plot points do not move quickly. They move with universal time. These are like, how do I say, synchronistic things that you have to work with the universe to make these things happen. Now, the minor arcana cards, well, these are the things that move a lot faster because they're, they're a lot more fluid. They're not more set in stone. Not too many things need to move around. So for the meantime, I tell my students when we're practicing tarot magic, first and foremost, you have to answer this question. What do you want? Okay, start it off by answering that. Let's say a person says, oh, I want a relationship. Okay, so knowing that you want a relationship, okay, let's say a romantic relationship, because you can have platonic relationships, you can have business relationships. This person wants a romantic relationships. Now, the question is, are you looking for that happily ever after that you're going to have with that one person? Or are you looking to just explore the relationship spectrum for the meantime and just, get your feet wet? Because if you're looking for the long-term relationship, you'll most likely use the card the Lovers, because there's an archetypal energy behind that. While if you're looking for, maybe a fling or just, something casual, not too serious, you might go with a card like the Three of Cups, or you might go with a card like even the Two of Cups, okay? Now, once you determine what you want, you have to be able to assign it to one of the 4 elements. So let's say if you want relationships, then you will identify that the perfect suit for manifesting relationships will be the Suit of Cups. Now let's say I have a problem, because a lot of people out there will come to you and they'll say, I got a problem with this, or I have a problem with that. Most of the time people doing magic, they're actually trying to solve a problem. That's where you're going to be working with the Suit of Swords. Okay, because the Suit of Swords is all about mental constructs. And a problem to me is not a problem to you. Okay, I tell that to my students all the time. Like, if my life depended on me putting on mascara, I am so screwed. that might not be a problem for you, Marla. You know what I mean? So it's like, Robert, you have 10 minutes to put on perfect eyeliner and mascara, or I'm going to kill you. For you, you'd be like, hey, I got it. For me, oh my God, I'm doomed. So the problem will always be subjective to the person. Now, if it's a person who's trying to live up their passions, let's say, I'm really passionate about artwork, I'm really passionate about martial arts or writing, the perfect suit for that is the suit of wands, because that has a lot of fiery energy to it. And there are different elements of the aspects of passion and willpower that are present in that suit that can fuel your passions. But second most popular, if the issue or the thing that they're trying to manifest is about money, then I tell them you will be using the suit of pentacles, because this is just about cold, hard cash, job, career. This is all, so you'll at least know, all right, so if I want to cast a spell because me and Marla are fighting right now, okay, we have a problem. Then if you want to address the problem, we will be using the the suit of swords. Now, once you've identified what you want, then ask, are you just dealing with just one element or two? People don't know that. Like, people say, well, you know what, me and Marla are having a problem right now in our relationship, so we must be doing with the suit of cups. Wrong. You're only half right, because although the relationship aspect of the spell will be addressed by the suit of cups, the problem, which is still part of the subject, will be addressed by the suit of swords. Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's all about first identifying what you want. Now, for example, okay, let's say that Marla, who's my kindred soul, I don't use the word twin flame, I think that's a bunch of garbage, to be honest. Kindred soul, like she's my soul sister, okay? Marla and I are having a problem because there was a semi-betrayal, okay? So we can use the Two of Cups to represent our kindred soul relationship, okay? Then we have to identify of the 10 cards from the suit of swords, which represents betrayal. And for those who understand the tarot, they will know that it's usually the Three of Swords that represents that. Okay? Now, the next thing we can do, we can try to understand what are the representations here. We want to cast a spell. We already know now we're going to be using these two cards, the Two of Cups to represent our relationships and the Three of Swords. Now, this is just the status quo. So in other words, alone, the problem is the betrayal, the Three of Swords. And it's causing problems in the relationships, which is the Two of Cups. Now, if you lit a candle there and then, or did a ritual, because I don't like telling people how to do their magic, I just give them pointers. If you did it with just these two cards, you're still with the status quo, because the archetypal energies you're dealing with are the relationship and, of course, the problem. You have to add a third card. Well, what outcome do you want to this spell? So let's say we wanted that me and Marla make up and we're partying again like friends. Then we can add the Three of Cups. So we have the Three of Swords, which represents the betrayal. We have the Two of Cups, which represents the relationship. We can add the Three of Cups there so that we can say, well, at the end of the day, she forgave me without drinking again. Everything is status quo. You see, the problem I notice with a lot of magicians nowadays is they only use symbologies of the status quo, but they never really use symbologies of the outcome that they want. Does that make sense, Marla?
Yeah, it does. And I've just got a question and a comment. And so
okay, fire away.
The comment was, this is Nyla, and she says that the Rider deck is all three for her. It is descriptive, intuitive, and hybrid. That it's in the whole package there. So that's kind
perfect
of
for her then.
And the other thing, the question, now it's a long one, says she's being a Taurus, was told to rely on the card, the Hierophant, for guidance. Should I do so or move on to what card feels a bit better?
Okay, now this is where I will tell you that the tarot reader in me begins and the astrologer in me ends, and I am not an astrologer, okay? Number one, never let anybody tell you what card you should use. Okay? Because I can tell you, Marla, you'd look beautiful in orange. But if you hate that color, you're not going to wear it. Am I making sense?
Oh,
so
sure.
first and foremost, the Hierophant energy has a lot to do with tradition and conformity. So if you're the kind of person who likes to strictly follow a tradition or follow some sort of collective energy, let's say you're going to join a group, let's say like the Freemasons, or you're going to, no disrespect to the Freemasons, or let's say the Opus Dei, or let's say Tibetan Buddhism, very strict and dogmatic energy. The pro here is the more you follow the dogma, the more connected to the collective energy you'll get. Or in other words, the more the collective will help you. The con is the more you deviate from it, the less support you'll get. I hope I'm making sense. Mm-hmm. So if you're that kind of person that says, you know what, I don't like doing things on my own, I prefer to be part of a formal tradition, then yes, the Hierophant is perfect for you. I personally don't like that. I don't like being suffocated by dogma. I was born and raised a Catholic. Here in the Philippines, there's too much dogma, and it tends to suffocate the authenticity of people. So my suggestion is go with what you feel works for you. Don't be told that an astrologer says, oh, you have Krypton in your 15th house in Neptune, blah, 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 and not really good to dictate your fate. You do you, in other words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes good sense. And I just never thought about, for me anyway, having a particular card for guidance. I just, you know, when I pick up the deck, it tells me what to do. You know, I open my mouth and say, hey, what's going on here? And boom, you know, I don't rely on one card. This is something.
All right. Now, before we go any further, I just wanted to just give people a little bit of an understanding how magic should work versus how it shouldn't. Okay?
Yes.
Like, I have a question for you, Marla. Do you drink coffee?
No. Well, sometimes, but mostly tea.
Okay. Well, sometimes, all right? So you say sometimes. Now, what are the odds that you and I will prepare our coffee identically the same way?
Not very easily, no.
Right? So you might just be a lady who will just put in like 3-in-1 in hot water and there's your coffee. I might be the kind of person who will go through a very intricate process of putting it through a filter and a Hario V60 brewer and make a very refined cup of coffee. But at the end of the day, when we present our cups, what did we present? Coffee. That's the same kind of understanding you should have with your magic. All right? So first and foremost, there is no right way, there is no wrong way, there is your way. Now, the only way it's really wrong is if we both agree to make coffee and you make, let's say, a milkshake. That's not coffee. You know what I mean? We agreed on coffee. So there are some guidelines that we do need to stick with, but how we do it is completely subjective to the person. Okay? So, number 2 to keep in mind, too, when you're doing any kind of tarot magic is this. Work with the energies that you are already familiar with to start with. So if you're a person who has been through a lot of pain, you've got like a Batman energy to you, then chances are you're going to do well with any kind of spell working with the Suit of Swords, or any of the darker energies of the tarot, like the Devil, or Death, or the Tower, because you've seen this. In other words, you're coming from more authenticity because you're relating. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you're fueling your magic, okay, whichever way you do it, it could be through candle magic, it could be through sigil magic, it could be through evocation, whichever works for you. That will simply be the energy source. You see what I mean? Because all forms of emotion can fuel your magic. So people say, but Rob, aren't you going to teach us a spell? I'll give you guys some pointers, but I don't like to tell people how to mix their coffee, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's good. And the person that asked that question, she said, she got it back to him, and she goes, oh boy, conformity is not me. So guess that's why that card doesn't make sense to me. And she said, thank you.
You're welcome. So let's go back to what we were saying about the practice of tarot magic, okay? So there are so many different forms of magic that exist out there, okay, like I said. And what we are teaching you with the tarot is you are tapping into things that trigger emotional, mental, and even sometimes psycho-spiritual responses, okay? Let's think of it like this, okay? Since I'm a stalwart believer that magic is subjective, I like to tell people also that which did not kill you makes you stronger. Okay, I have a lot of people come to me for readings or come to me for lessons, and they have some terrible, traumatic things that happen to them, and I never dismiss it. I never say, oh, move on, let it go. That is the worst thing you can say to a person who's been through trauma. But I always tell them, is there a way we can constructively use this energy for your betterment? So let's take one card which is very painful, the Tower. Okay?
I love that card, by the way.
Yeah, I know. But the thing with the Tower is it's usually the crap hits the fan moment of a person's life. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to get the Tower card, that's really devastating. You know what I mean? That's like, OMG, you're being tested to your limit. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, when do Tower moments happen? Breakups, deaths, illnesses, and the traumatic, heavy stuff. Now, as magicians, Marla, we must agree that although heinous, these things emit energy. True or false?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to be a little bit extreme here. I might razz people by saying this, but this is an example. Let's say we're dealing with a rape victim, one of the most heinous crimes that could happen to a person. Okay? Mm-hmm. If that happened to you, you have now been dumped with a crap ton of shadow energy. Okay? It's dark. It's heavy. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you do not use that energy is going to destroy you. It'll destroy you through depression. It'll destroy you through PTSD because that's just trauma energy. Okay? Now, what if you took that energy and the energy which will be triggered and anchored to the memory of the card, the Tower. So when you see the Tower, you remember that heinous thing happened to you. And now you're saturated in this energy. But you said to yourself, never again. This will never happen to another person as long as I'm involved. And you became yourself, let's say, an advocate of women's rights to protect people who have been victimized of something as heinous like that. You are, in effect, using that trauma energy brought to you by the Tower and triggering it into something constructive. You're basically making yourself a social justice warrior. You're like, no, never again. And you're coming from a genuine place of relation. Like, this happened to me. I experienced this, and not on my watch. That is a better alternative than to feel the energies of the Tower and just sit in the corner and wither away. The world needs your light. The world needs your presence. I hope this makes sense to the readers, and I hope I didn't rub anybody the wrong way. I mean, I hope this never happened to anyone. But for those going through something, imagine how you can take your trauma and turn it into something constructive. Like me, for example. When I put up Mysterium Philippines, okay, I was a lot younger. And I had a slew of bad, abusive occult teachers that I've come across. All right? I can openly say this. One of them even tried to take sexual advantage of me. One tried to steal my money. One tried being a dictator. And one after the other, I was like, what the F is going on? I just want to find a teacher that I can rally behind because I don't feel safe. Okay? I need to find that typical, Obi-Wan Kenobi that I can follow who's not going to take advantage of me. And it kind of came to my mind that, like, well, Rob, the safest hands are your own. If you cannot find it, maybe you need to be it. And because of that trauma of me having abusive teachers, the thrust of Mysterium Philippines became a safe space to develop intuitive potential. And it's very clear we put the word safe space. We want people to feel safe. So you could imagine how after that, those Tower moments of abusive teachers of mine, I was able to stir it into something that's brought positive value to people's lives. So this is all about depolarizing the things you've been through. I hope that makes sense for you in the audience.
It does, and this is going to be a good time to take a quick break. And so everybody sit still, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Wait, there's more Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks right after these important messages.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months.
When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to. I had to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom. It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
Throughout time, events have occurred that have shaped human history. Spirit voices from the past have many stories to tell, and for the past several years, channelers Barry and Connie Strom have been conducting live channeling sessions and relaying those stories and messages from those on the other side. We invite you to tune in to Barry and Connie's new show, Channeling History, on the PowerX Radio Network, every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, as they relay the messages of those voices from the past, the ones who have witnessed history firsthand, and those who have made history themselves.
Hey everyone, it's Marla. If you like tonight's episode of Stirring the Cauldron and the archive podcast as well, take a look at the show's YouTube channel and check out the dozens of shows that are there just waiting to be heard. New shows are added each week, and while you're there, why not subscribe? It's free. And if you click on that tiny little bell icon at the top of the page, you'll be notified when new shows are available. Just go to youtube.com and then type in Stirring the Cauldron Para X and the link will appear. Just like magic.
Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
And our masterclass teacher is Robert Rubin, and we're talking about tarot magic and all different things that are opening my ears that I probably wasn't going to think about it. So, Rob, I'm just going to let you keep going.
All righty, thank you. And it's an honor to be back. And for all of you out there, if you want to know more about me, visit me at facebook.com/Rob Rubin Readings. I'd love to hear from all of you, and we could talk tarot there all you'd like. Now, the next thing I'd like to share with each and every one of you is that before you start practicing tarot magic, please have a basic understanding of two things: tarot and magic. Simple as that. I said, I don't know if this needs to be any more obvious, but somebody's like, well, I want to learn tarot magic. All right, that's great. But do you even know how magic works? No. Do you even know how the tarot works? No. Then how can you expect to synthesize the both? Like the both. Like, for example, a lot of people jump into witchcraft or to Wicca because they want to learn magic. And I tell them that's not showing Wicca, for example, the respect that it's due, because it is a respectable religion. And that's basically you saying that, oh, well, I'm using the religion to get what I want. So if you're going to start practicing tarot magic, first start off by understanding the fundamentals of magic. And there's some amazing books, courses out there. Like there's a lot of work from people like Lon Milo Duquette or Donald Michael Craig that are very good at giving you the basics of magic. Modern magic, sort of my basics of them. But the next thing you need to understand is the archetypal symbology of the tarot deck. Because if you do not have that familiarity, then you're not going to be able to tap deeper into how these cards can help fuel your magical practice. If you're just going to open a deck and try to do spells right now without having both, you're going to basically have a very limited outlook. Versus if you've taken the time to study both independently, you'll be given a little bit more understanding. Now, why do I say this? Because, Marla, you read the tarot, am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so a question I'm going to ask you. Yeah, but you do. Okay, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm really hoping you get it right. I don't want to make you look like you don't know what you're talking about because you're a very wise woman. But of all the spreads that exist, what is the most popular that almost everyone should know? There's this one spread that this is the known tarot spread.
Past, present, and future.
Oh, that's okay. I'll take that. Okay, but the other one, it's another one that's very popular.
That 15-card one that people do. I don't know what it's called.
It's actually a 10-card one. It's called the Celtic Cross. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah. So,
Right? So, a lot of the tarot books you get, every time you buy a tarot book, a majority of the time you'll be given a little white booklet that comes with it. Or if you're lucky, you'll have a formal book. The Celtic Cross is explained there. And if you are a tarot reader and you don't, I'm not saying you have to be good at it, but if you don't know what the Celtic Cross is, that's like me saying that I'm Filipino and I don't know what rice is, okay? It's kind of well, you know what, it's pretty common. I mean, you got to check your resources here. Now, why do I bring up the Celtic Cross? Because although there are different variants of it, I tell people you do the Celtic Cross the way you do it, but if you understand the layout of it, it gives you a very good snapshot of a bird's eye point of view of your life. Mm-hmm. A little bit into the past, a little bit into the present, and a little bit into the future. Okay, that's the beautiful thing of it. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because my dear friend and co-host, Wade Long of Magic.tv, shared with me a technique that's very helpful, which is basically called the reverse Celtic Cross. What is the reverse Celtic Cross? Usually people will use the Celtic Cross to read, right? So if I'm going to read for you with the Celtic Cross, the first card is the present position, then the second card is the immediate influence, followed by the hopes and dreams, past foundations, so on and so forth. We are reading, we are receiving. So why can't we as magicians lay out an ideal scenario of a Celtic Cross? Am I making sense? Mm-hmm. In other words, we don't select randomly the cards. We place the cards we want there. So, example, present position, 10 of Cups, I'm really happy. Immediate influence, the Lovers, I meet the woman of my dreams. Hopes and dreams, the Emperor, I want to be the guy on top. Past foundations, the 6 of Cups, I help people. Recent past, the 9 of Cups, I got a lot of achievements in my belt. In other words, you will personally select each card for each position and lay them out as if you had a reading for the life that you wanted. What people don't know is by doing this, you are inadvertently making a tarot mandala. You can literally take a photo of it, like the final outcome, the 10 of coins, making a lot of money attached to higher purpose. In other words, you are making an ideal outcome that you can focus on. Okay? You are making an ideal outcome that you could feed your unconscious with. Now people would ask me, but Rob, how can you do that? Remember, the unconscious mind does not respond to conscious stimuli. Okay? So in other words, I can't think, unconscious mind, listen to me right now. That's not how it works. So one of the things that you need to do is you need to be able to put this in the periphery of your life. In other words, place it in places where you're not minding it, but you can see it. Like one thing I would tell you, you could take a photo of it, print it out, and put it on your mirror. So when you wake up in the morning and you're brushing your teeth, you're not really looking at the mandala, but it's kind of like leaking into your side vision. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another thing that can be done, you could make it the wallpaper on your phone. Because how many times have you actually stared at the wallpaper of your phone? Not really. But if you notice, it's in the background. And those symbols will start fueling your unconscious mind. And those energies will start moving on their own the more frequent they are there. I hope that makes sense for the people who are paying it or tuning in, because I'd really want them to be able to apply that for themselves.
That's good. I've got a question, and let me get it over with because I might forget. All right.
Okay.
She says, I have a hard time working with tarot. Most of the time when I try to use the cards, I will pick up information that has nothing to do with what the meaning of the card should be, but the information I get is accurate. So I wonder if I'm doing something wrong.
Okay. If I'm going to go by the definition of Paul Foster Case, absolutely not. You are not doing anything wrong because it is provoking thought. Like, let me give you an example. There was this really cool movie a couple years ago that came out called The Matrix. I don't know if you're familiar with this movie. And in this movie, the main character, Neo, had to go to somebody called the Oracle. Okay? The Oracle, in effect, was supposed to be able to, how do I say, predict or give him a prediction if he was the chosen one or not. But she told him directly, you're not the one. You're not the chosen one. So he thought he was, but then the Oracle told him you're not. And then the movie, for those who haven't seen it, plays out. And in the end, he finds out he was the chosen one. So in the sequel, he goes back to not in the sequel, towards the end of the movie, he tells his friend, but the Oracle said, I'm not the chosen one. And his friend said, she told you exactly what you needed to hear. See what I mean? So if you're trying to base your readings based upon the meanings of the card, that's like me telling Marla, can you please talk like a witch and talk to my sister? But Marla, wait a minute. What do you mean talk like a witch? Cackle? You know what I mean? I'll talk like Marla. I will tell her what she needs to hear. And if there's a magical effect that happens from that, then so be it. So I'd like to tell my students, especially in the tarot, do not be constipated with the idea that you have to have the meanings identical to the handbook, because even these definitions came from somewhere.
Okay, that's good advice. I got another comment in the chat room from Will. He says, hi, Sir Rob. I'm still introducing my energy to your No More Hiding tarot deck. Any tips?
All right. Customize it. If it gets too overwhelming, because my deck has 100 cards to it, chop it down only to the essential 78 cards, but select the cards that really, especially those that have more than one variant, select the ones that really align with your personal values and your personal energies. Because there are some cards there that will not fit others. Like example, in my deck, we have two versions of the Empress. We have the Empress and we have the Lightworker. Okay? I personally take out the Lightworker because I'm not really one who likes that term. Okay? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Lightworkers. I just don't like that term. So I would rather have the Empress when I'm reading the deck than having the Lightworker there, because it, again, triggers certain energies of me based upon my own experience. So customize it to your need. At the same time, feel free to break the rules. Heck, try reading with the whole deck. See what the deck talks to you like. Try to deck interview it and try to understand, hey, what are you trying to tell me? Like, I have one student who's a seasoned reader, and she tried reading with it on her show, and she's like, this deck is way too heavy for me to just do on the show. So it's kind of like the difference between a cup of instant coffee and a very, how do I say, intricate siphon coffee, which takes a little bit more tweaking, but gives you a different coffee experience. You have to experience it in your own way.
Okay. All right, we can go back to what you're going to talk about. And
all right, yeah. Sorry about that. I'm kind of rambling already, but I'm just having a good time tonight.
No, you're not rambling. I just want to say everything you say makes a lot of sense. So if that's rambling, you're really good. Okay.
All right, thank you for that. So we're going back to the idea now of using the deck as a spell book. Okay, and I have a beautiful book that I've released. I'm actually almost out of my first run of it, and I call it the Tarot 78 Spells for 78 Days. And this is a 78-day course that I also offer online for people who want to learn about it. So they can visit my Facebook page and ask all about it there. Now, the next thing we want to look into also is identifying the energies that don't work for us. And I'm very happy that that nice lady asked about the Hierophant card. Okay, because statistically, the card that was given the least amount of love from tarot readers around the world, according to the Tarosophy Tarot Association, is the Hierophant. Because the energies of the Hierophant remind us of when we are being told to do things. We are being controlled. But there are other cards in the deck that will have a similar negative reaction. So, understanding that all emotions can fuel your magic. You have to be able to differentiate in your deck which cards give you positive energy, which cards give you negative energy. Let's take one that's very popular, Marla. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that this card gets the most popularity because people are so scared crapless of it. Death. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
If you don't know what it means, oh my God, it's a death card, I'm going to die. And I tell them, yeah, the card says you're going to die. Because obviously we're all going to die, right? It's inevitable. But according to that card, some people will see that card and, be struck by an energy of terror. So basically it's simple. Fear. You can use the death card to entice fear in people. But what if you see it as transformation? What if you see it as the ending of something? So say, for example, if you're in an abusive relationship and the death card comes out, what does that mean, the end of that abuse? Now, isn't that a good thing? Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? So some people will see the death card as something horrible. Some people will see it as something good. At the end of the day, it's up to you how you use it. Okay? Like one thing I did a couple years ago, there was this really mean person, okay? I came across this one person and I read the tarot for them, and they weren't only disrespectful, they were cruel. All right, you could be a jerk, okay? I understand. But if you're cruel, that's already like crossing a line for me. And although we used to be friends, I tried salvaging the friendship. But this person was, just for lack of a better word, a feminazi. Okay, she was cruel, and I would always be respectful. Like example, if it was you, Marla, like, hey Marla, I really don't appreciate how you're talking to me, and then you're being a weakling. You know what I mean? Such a freaking weakling. That's why people don't like me. All right, it's go time. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be nice here, right? However, this person was also very paranoid. All right, so after that argument, I simply made a photo. And I put the Nine of Swords, I put Death, and I put the Devil. All right? And I put it next to an incense burner of mine that looks like a skeleton in a coffin. I posted it on my social media, and I just put hashtag sleep well. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's all I did. Then I started getting messages from this person saying, what did you do to me? I haven't slept properly for the past week. Now, here's the thing. I didn't do anything. You did that to yourself. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. The power of auto-suggestion in these cards are so powerful that sometimes you don't even need to do the magic. The magic can do itself. I didn't cast a curse on that person because if I was going to cast a curse on that person, I definitely wouldn't share it on social media. Okay?
Yeah.
But you can kind of do that, that Jedi mind trick. Like, for example, also, if you take a photo of yourself and you're holding the card, the Empress, okay, people will see your beautiful looks. But unconsciously, they're also going to be triggered by the presence of the Empress card, and they're going to be, in most cases, reminded of nurturing, motherly, caring, comforting energy, and it might make people more comfortable around you or more at ease with that around you. Versus if you did the opposite and you're holding the card, the Emperor, people will be like, okay, I don't want to piss Marla off. She's a boss. You see what I mean? And this is still magic. Because basically you're using the cards to instill an effect upon the people around you. So I like to tell people, be very careful of the archetypes that you choose to play with in the tarot, because I wrote an article about it in my blog. You can actually overdo it. Like, I really resonate with the Emperor card because it's a leadership card, but honestly, leadership can be exhausting at times, Marla.
Sure.
So when I feel that the whole leadership thing is a bit too heavy for me, people will see that I shift the energy from the Emperor to the Magician card. If you get what I'm saying. Like what I even did, one tactic I did was pre-COVID, I actually printed calling cards, but they were the size of a tarot card, and on the back was a print of the Rider-Waite-Smith Emperor. Why? Because it's out of copyright. Okay? In other words, anybody can do it. It's really out of copyright. You can do it. Don't believe anything any of the publishers say. Rider-Waite-Smith is out of copyright. It's over 100 years old. Okay? So on one end was my contact details. The other end in the back was the Emperor. And people would keep it because, wow, cool, you gave me a tarot card as a calling card. But it also instills in the mind of people, hey, this guy must be a leader in his community. So, but the thing is, like I said, it gets exhausting. So when I kind of got a little bit cooked from that, I redid the design to the Magician because I wanted to be a little bit more contemplative, skilled, and driven. I didn't just want to be the guy calling the shots because that gets tired. I hope that all that's a nice, how do I say, tickle of the imagination to all the people listening, because you can do that. So, example, if you want to be a harbinger of hope to people, you could really totemize the card, the star. Because remember the old saying, when you wish upon a star, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's a representation of hope. Now, of course, if your card is death, then either you are a mortician or an engineer at times. So I would just tell people, be very careful with the associations you choose, because they will have an immediate effect on you whether you like it or not.
And you can also trial and error. Pick one, and if it doesn't work, try something else, right?
Very, very, very true.
Okay.
All right, do we have more questions, comments, death threats?
Not yet, but when you were talking about the death card, I know people say, oh my God, you know what you say, I'm going to die, blah, 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 blah. But if it comes reversed, then they think it's going to be perfect. But it isn't exactly that. It's not good one way and bad the other, is it?
Yeah, it's not. But here's another thing I'll tell you. If you're tapping into archetypal energies, I don't think I've ever met a student of mine whose significator is death reverse. You know what I mean? It's like people will see it as what it is. So it's like, hey, why is she holding the card upside down? Most people will just ignore the reversed meaning and focus more on just what they see, if you get what I'm saying. It's like, hey, the card's upside down. They won't see the reversal of the Emperor as lack of leadership. They'll still see it as upside down leadership. It's still leadership nonetheless. So that's just something that everybody's mind can be pickled with at times. Because, like, another thing I tell students, like, when I started my tarot journey, I was 14 years old. God knows how long ago. I drew one card from this very ugly deck. I don't want to name it on the radio because the publisher might get mad at me, but it was ugly. But it was my first deck that found its way to me. And I drew a card. Okay, this card represents my journey in the practice of these cards. And I drew the 10 of Swords. So I was like, wow, I wonder what this means. And the card definition said, ruin, suffering, pain, despair. I was like, ouch. Now, here's the thing. I have actually grown to learn that the meaning of the 10 of Swords to me is not ruin, not suffering, not pain, not despair, but actually stupidity. Why? If you look at the Rider-Waite version of the 10 of Swords, and my dear friend Marcus Katz, the founder of Theosophy, will have a heyday with me for saying this, but we all have our own definitions of the cards. The 10 of Swords shows a man lying down on the floor with 10 swords in his back. Okay? Now, if I'm going to invoke CSI, or my CSI investigator, I'm going to see something wrong with this photo. Why? Because if you're walking on the street, and unless the person's a ninja, if somebody stabs you in the back, what is your most likely reaction going to be? Either you turn to face who the hell did this, Or you don't even waste any time when you run away. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fact that this person had 10 swords stuck in his back means that this is a pattern that the individual refuses to break. Hence, I call it the stupidity card. Because until you break that pattern, it will continue again and again and again. So when the 10 of Swords comes out, like if I wanted to make somebody's day bad, I can send them 10 of Swords energy, and that's going to make them suffer. But I can also use the 10 of Swords to identify what pattern am I looped in. So if I told you, Marla, can you read the tarot for me? I've had 10 girlfriends, and the 10 girlfriends all cheated on me. Why do they keep cheating on me? Why are they so evil ladies? You'd be like, Rob, the only thing common between you and the 10 girls is you. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? Maybe it's your approach to relationships is the reason why you keep getting cheated on. Did you ever think about that? Of course you won't tell them, oh, you're cheat-worthy, you're scum. No. But part of the process is discovering why is this happening. And the beautiful thing of it is, since it's a mental construct, because a pattern is a mental construct, 99% of the time, when you're made aware of a pattern, you will break it. Did you know that?
No. You know what I'm breaking is my head here. Somebody's got a question, and we only have like 2 minutes.
Okay, go.
Okay. She said, is it the reversal of the meaning, so Ace of Cups would be emotional control or calming down? I don't know if I want to use the reversal in this context, but an upright, different card.
If you don't want to use it, then don't. From my point of view, my interpretation of the Ace of Cups is filling your cup. And that's a beautiful thing. The cup representative of the heart.
That was quick. Okay. All right, we really have to go. So give out your website and social media, and you've already said that, but website is good, and it talks about classes and services and all that good stuff. Go ahead.
All right, you can see me at robrubinreadings.com or go to facebook.com/robrubinreadings.
And everything is there. And I noticed there are services and classes, and so everybody can run over there and check things out. All right. So thank you for joining us. You know, this is really good. It's one of those things that, you know, I'm listening and learning all the time. So this is great. And maybe you'll come back sometime. Yeah?
I would love that. Maybe in another 10 years.
Let's hope not. All right.
Let's hope not.
Okay, and I want to thank you, the listeners, as well. And until next time, everybody, blessed be, and merry meet again. Good night.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Stirring the Cauldrons Masterclass. Please join us at the same time for another great class and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2024. The Holiday Weasel by Kevin MacLeod is licensed through Incompetech.